am doing a book talk on the book All the Missing Girls. If you had me, maybe I know I had a few of you, at the end of last year I read this book at the end of the year, and I was addicted to it. So it's a really good book. How I came to find this book is I'm kind of a Barnes & Noble, like, how's the cover look kind of person, and then I read the back and I decide if I like it. So really there's no like really cool thing like how I found this book other than as I was at Barnes & Noble there was just this whole table of books, and I swear I had read maybe 6 or 7 of the books just sitting on that table, and then I saw this one and I was like, well, I haven't read this one, but I've read all of these, so maybe I'll like this, and I picked it up. I read the back. I was looking for like a murder mystery type, like whodunit, and when I read the title All the Missing Girls, I figured, well, that sounds like they're probably going to figure out what happened to these girls. So that's how I came to find this book. So initially it's about, the thing I like about this book the most, especially telling high schoolers about it, is that it's about an adult, but she reflects back 10 years past and something that happened to her in high school her senior year. And so I love that. I think it's a combo of adult, yes, also teen fiction in a way. So up here I've got 10 years ago, Corinne is missing. 10 years later, a girl is missing. Tyler is a suspect. Daniel is the brother, another suspect. Dad has dementia, another suspect. Nick is the main character, is determined to find out what happened to these missing girls. What does she already know from the day before? So Nick is our main character. She is going back to her hometown. I think it's in Tennessee. It's a made-up town in Cooley Ridge, and it's like a tiny, tiny, small town. She's going back. She's been living in New York for a while. She's got a fiance there, but she's got to come help her dad with dementia. And these things start to unravel that happened 10 years ago. Corinne, her best friend, went missing, and they still didn't know exactly what happened to her. They presume she's dead, but there was never a body. So she's kind of having to go back after 10 years and see all these people, an ex-boyfriend, her brother, who she has a strained relationship with. Based on the passage I'll read, you'll see why. And then her dad, who's sick, her mother's passed away. So there's all these things. But what caught me with this book is that as I started reading, I was like, okay, this is interesting, and then all of a sudden, after 2 weeks of being, or just initially going to the town, I opened the page and it said 2 weeks before, and then it said the day before, and I got really confused. And then as I kept reading, it's day 14, and then the next chapter is day 13, and then the next chapter is day 12. Then day 11. So it's actually written backwards. You're finding out the things that Corinne, or Nick, the main character, she's a girl, has found out the day before. And by, I would say, day 4 or 3, I'm like, oh my gosh, she knew this. So it's really, really engaging. I really liked it. I'll read a passage to you. This kind of really sums up, I think, a lot of what's in the rest of the book. And now that I read it, knowing the book, I feel like it actually gives away things just a little bit, not enough, but a little bit. But it gives you a good highlight of the book at large. 10 years ago, right around this time, the last 2 weeks of June, the fair had been in town. I hadn't been home since then, and yet for all this time and distance, this still remained my sharpest memory. The thing that came to me first before I could push it away, anytime ever I asked about home. Hanging over the edge of the Ferris wheel cart, the metal digging into my stomach, calling his name. Tyler, down below, too far to focus on his face, frozen with his hands in pockets as people weave around him, watching us, watching me. Corinne, whispering in my ear, do it. Bailey laughed, tight and nervous, and the cart rocking slowly back and forth, suspended all over Cooley Ridge. Tick-tock, Nick. Me climbing over the edge, though we were all wearing skirts, and shifted in my weight, swinging the cart even more. My elbows gripped the bar at the top of the cage between me, my feet balancing on the waist-high ledge below. Corinne's hands at my elbow, her breath in my ear. Tyler watching as the Ferris wheel started to circle downward again. The wind rushing up from the ground, my stomach dropping, my heart racing. The ride screeched to a stop in the base, and stepping off at the moment too soon, The impact from the metal loading dock jarred my knees as I ran down the ramp, dizzy and full of adrenaline, calling back to the worker who was yelling after me, I know, I'm leaving. Racing toward Tyler, faintly smiling, his eyes telling me everything he wanted in that moment as he stood near the exit. An enabler. That's what Daniel called him, trying to find someone to blame other than me. Run, Tyler had mouthed to me. I was out of breath, not quite laughing, but something close. As I raced towards him, his lips curled into one of those half smiles. I knew we wouldn't make it out of the parking lot. We'd be lucky to make it to his truck. But then a hand gripped me. I said I'm leaving as I yanked my arm away, but it wasn't security. It was Daniel. He grabbed me, solid, and forced and hit me. He hit me across the face with a closed fist, and the impact knocked me off my feet onto my side. My arm twisted on the ground between my stomach and the dirt. Shock and pain, fear and shame, they all felt like the same thing in my memory, all tangled up in the taste of blood and dirt. He'd never hit me before, not even when we were little kids, really. 10 years later, and that moment hangs between us in every interaction, in every passive-aggressive text message or ignored phone call. And later that night, sometime between the fair closing and 6 a.m., Corinne disappeared. And everything that had happened that day took a new weight, a new meaning. In the weeks that followed, the potential death became palpable. It was all around us, intangible yet suffocating, existing in every different permutation of events. She could always be dead, in 1,000 different ways. Maybe she left before her father abused her. Maybe she and her mother divorced him and left town a year later. Or maybe it was the boyfriend, Jackson, because it's usually the boyfriend, and they've been fighting. Or the guy she was flirting with at the fair, whom none of us knew. The one at the hot dog stand. The one who Bailey swore he'd been watching us. Or maybe she stuck her thumb out for a ride home, in the too short skirt and the long-sleeved gauzy top, and maybe a stranger passing town took her, used her, and left her. Maybe she just left. That's what the cops finally decided. She was 18, legally an adult, and she'd had enough of this place. By the time the people from the state arrived to help out, it was too late. We'd already turned inward, already from our theories, said already, believed what we needed to believe. The official line, Corinne last existed to everyone who knew her, just inside the entrance to the fair. And from there, she disappeared. But she didn't, really. There was more. A piece for each of us that was kept hidden away. For Daniel, she disappeared outside the fair, behind the ticket booth. For Jackson, from the parking lot on the caverns. And for me, she faded into nothing from a curve on a winding road on the way back to Cooley Ridge. We were a town full of fear, searching for answers, but we were also a town full of liars. So, going to the next slide here. Oh, I didn't know I had a transition for that. There's a lot about, in this story, just about the woods and a bar. Those are the other two settings. There's another girl 10 years later who's gone missing, and that's another reason Corinne decides to stay. And she really makes it her mission to find out why is this girl missing. And then all of these people have a play in this other missing girl. So that's how it kind of, all of Corinne's missing and like what happened to her comes to the surface. And that was just like my excerpt. So highly recommend this. That was a quick snapshot. I know it was kind of long, but it gives you kind of good details. I think that the key is that last line of, it's a town full of liars. Everyone knows a little bit of tidbit about what happened to this girl, and you can only know it from the day before. So it's pretty cool to piece things together backwards. That's why I like this book so much. So
thank you so much.
So this is Megan. Oops, sorry. This is Megan Miranda. She's written also The Perfect Stranger, which is very similar. I didn't like that one as much, but after I read this, I had to read another book by her. And then she also apparently has written a lot of young adult lit, which I have yet to read. So this was my my book candy. So it's really good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Very, very cool. All right, and today we are also hearing